Hi guys, it's my honor and privilege to introduce you to Jan Bodenstein, a clinical psychologist that we work close with as a congregation, and that is also, he has played a big role in my mental wellness personally, and I honor him and value his input highly. Jan, it's nice to have you with us. I asked Jan if he could just engage us on mental wellness in a time such as this. I've realized in my own life, my own emotions was running up and down all over the place, and I couldn't always understand what was going on. I've had some of my highest highs and lowest lows on two different occasions during this lockdown. I just, for some weird reason, end up like weeping for an hour without any specific real reason or massive, tragic event in my life. And I realized, wow, this is interesting. And also in my marriage, I've seen we've had some of our highest highs and lowest lows in this time. So this is a sensitive time when it comes to mental and emotional functioning. And so I asked Jan a few questions prior to this, and we're going to have a conversation with regards to mental wellness that I hope is going to provide you with a way of becoming aware of what's happening in your own life, and also having tools to effectively deal with that. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Jan if you could maybe define to us, like, what do we mean when we speak about something, if we call it mental wellness? What exactly are we speaking about, and how can we relate to that?
Yes. Yeah, I think just before I jump in, thank you for having me, Debbie. It's like always like being in your presence and in your guys' presence. Visited the congregation before. It's also nice to be confronted with some of the ideas that we discussed on a personal level. We are in interesting times, definitely. And it brings one to a still stand, which is challenging, but which is good. So I'm excited to, just to have this chat and to talk more about this thing we call mental wellness. Big word. So I think to maybe throw in a few synonyms as well. Mental health refers to our emotional well-being, also about psychological well-being, and I think emotions usually take the biggest spotlight when we talk about mental health. But I think also, just to throw in a little bit of light on our behavior can also indicate our mental wellness, our emotional wellness, obviously, our physiological wellness, and then obviously referring to this mental processes, our thought processes. So we'll maybe touch on each one of those pointers, but I think a good synonym would be emotional wellness.
Emotional wellness. Yep. Thanks, Jan. So moving on from there, let's take the conversation to specific signs that we could maybe pick up in ourselves that would maybe show to us that there are signs that our mental wellness or our emotional wellness is changing. How can we know that this is affecting us in that way? What kind of self-awareness techniques you think one could use to just reflect and evaluate to know whether I'm actually being impacted by what's going on in this way?
Yes. Debbie, I like to usually say that we can only change what we know of. Okay, so the word self-awareness is quite a it's quite a significant thing, and I think it's important that if we talk about change, we first need to know what is it that is changing. especially in these times, we would make comments such as, "No, my emotional well-being is worsening," or I experience change in my emotions. But emotions itself is also quite a broad word, so it's important to go and search for exactly what is changing. And I think it's good to investigate. Okay, when we talk about emotions, what am I personally experiencing? What's going on in my emotions? Okay, and then maybe to challenge yourself and just to sit still and ask yourself, so what names can I give exactly what I'm feeling? As a Western culture, and maybe personally more as an Afrikaans person, I didn't grow up in identifying what I'm feeling. So identifying the emotion specifically may help you to start realizing and start identifying, so what is changing. So emotions such as, what's my anxiety levels doing, stress, panic. How am I feeling? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling frustrated? Am I angry? Am I being disgusted? Do I experience bitterness? So, we get a whole range of emotions. And emotional awareness is not only realizing, sure, I'm feeling emotional today, but also being able to identify, the specific emotion, because each emotion has a different reaction on our body. Okay, when I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling physiologically different to when I'm feeling sad or when I'm feeling angry. There might be correlations between them, but yeah, to be able to see this specific emotion from different dimensions is definitely helpful, becoming more specific in knowing what is changing. Okay. Maybe also to touch on a few. Yes, sorry.
Like just to clarify that for myself, would it be accurate to say that because different emotions affect me differently and therefore need different remedy in that sense, I need to grow the skill of knowing what emotion am I dealing with, rather than to only say it's going well or it's not going well? Because I might say it's not going well, and then my reaction to that might not be so helpful, because I might be applying a thing that helps for anxiety, but it's actually more frustration. And then would that be okay?
Yes, definitely. I think just in terms of support. If I'm feeling sad, I might want someone to comfort me. If I'm feeling angry, you better leave me alone a little bit. So just to be able to identify what's going inside of me will also enable me more to know what I'm needing at this specific time. So yes, I think it's spot on. To be able to know what you need, you first need to know what you are feeling. Yes, definitely. So just on that topic again, in self-awareness and so on, some others, maybe signs and things that we can ask ourselves if there's any change apart from the emotional awareness. Maybe things that go with the emotion is sleeping patterns that may change. How am I sleeping the past week? I think sometimes we just make a very generalized statement saying I'm not feeling so great. But what are you referring specifically in terms of emotions? We've covered that, and maybe more specifically, how have I been sleeping? This past week. Have there been any changes in my appetite? I'm not hungry, or maybe I'm even more hungry because I need more comfort. Energy levels, motivational levels, those are all specifiers to be more specific in what I'm experiencing at the moment. Concentration. I used to be able to read a book a week, and now I'm sitting with the same book for a month. So yeah, concentration also gives us a good indication that there's a shift in our mental wellness, mental wellness. Yeah. I know it's a Freudian slip there, but yeah.
Well, we need to work on mental wellness before it becomes mental wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, maybe just to mention this one as well, there's a it's quite unique times we're in at the moment, but we tend to enjoy. We tend to be part of activities that we enjoy. But when there's a shift in our mental wellness, we tend to enjoy the usual things less. To ask yourself, when last did I read a book? If you're a book reader, okay, maybe that's also something that you can use to get an indication of how you are doing. We're talking about specific signs that you can become more aware of your emotional well-being. I think if you reflect on, when last have I done something that I really enjoyed, that's maybe also a specific sign, and also maybe a specific question you can ask yourself.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to summarize, you need to become aware of behavioral changes, and not only say, well, because my life is different under lockdown conditions, obviously things are different, and understand them to be almost normative, but to still kind of reflect and say, well, I'm not sure whether this is normative, because I'm usually like this, but now I'm like that. I usually feel this, but now I feel that.
Yes.
I think that's really helpful for me also, just to think through normal patterns, and things that I do find. I've often found that I love to braai. I love to make the fire, look at it, like play with the wood and get the meat on, and like plan it and time it and all that stuff. It's a therapeutic exercise for me. But then there
Yes.
comes a time when I think about I'm gonna braai and I'm really not excited, and I'm like, no, I just don't want to. I just want to go. I just don't want to do anything. Just, when I feel like that, I know that I'm burnt out. I know that I'm at a bad place, because my normal pleasures in life are not that anymore. Would that be an example?
Yes, a good example. Yeah. So we use the word insight. So when our mental health what goes down, worsens, deteriorates. Yeah. Our insight tends to deteriorate as well. So it's really specific questions you need to ask yourself, because when your mental health goes down, you tend to not ask or not realize what's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good example.
All right. So when do I know that this is really an issue? Because I guess there are different levels of it being an issue. Some is just behavioral change because I'm in a different environment. Some of it is something I should maybe take note of and maybe do something small about. And then it could be that I could need help. So how do I know when I need help?
Yeah.
How do I know when maybe I only need to take note, and how to distinguish between the difference between those two, maybe?
Yeah. This is a question that comes quite close to my heart, because I think we live definitely in a world where things are available to us, and it's available quite quickly. So when there's a feeling of discomfort, we tend to jump and seek help very fast, because we just want this discomfort away. Okay, it's just the fast pace that we're living in. So I call it natural resources. Sometimes we need to just wait a bit before we just seek help, and just access those natural resources. Those resources can only develop if we need them. So I would say before we identify what are the signs we need to look for to actually seek help, maybe just seek those seek those resources within yourself. But we are definitely experiencing a lot of stuff during this time, and it's really hectic. It's not something small. So I also don't want to minimize the intensity that we are experiencing all of this, and definitely I'm not referring help away, saying that if we need help, definitely go for help. And I think two words that I want to highlight that maybe can give you an indication to seek help. If the awareness aspects that we mentioned in the previous question, your emotional awareness, some other signs and symptoms, if you just keep track of the intensity, okay, the intensity that you feel the anxiety, or the intensity that you feel the sadness, to measure an intensity, you can basically ask yourself, okay, from a scale from 0 to 10, where 10 is the most intense and 0 is just not intense at all. Where do I scale myself, and keep a record of that intensity that you feel that specific emotion? Or how great did you sleep last night? No, I slept 2 out of 10. I slept like a baby. Well, babies don't really sleep. Slept very well. Or no, it was an intense night for me. I didn't sleep at all. Rate yourself at an 8 out of 10, or whatever. But just to measure the intensity. So that's the one point. And the other point is the frequency. How often were you feeling anxious? How often were you feeling frustrated? Has this frustration sat with you or be with you through a whole week now? For the past 2 weeks, I can feel myself being on edge. So it's really about the frequency, how often you're experiencing this mental health issue, but also the intensity. Those are the two main aspects I would highlight.
All right. So would you say, you mentioned about journaling them or like jotting them down? So to make it practical, let's say if I feel anxiety right now and I've got the issue with sleep, and I get fits of anger. So those are the 3 things I'm just recognizing. So would you then kind of say, cool, so I write them down and I score them in terms of the frequency and in terms of the intensity, and then I kind of keep track and see, is the progress good or is the progress bad? And then at the point where I feel like, whoa, like this is something of this feels out of control now, something of this trajectory feels, whoa, I don't know where this is going, it's definitely not going in the right direction, then you would like reach out to a professional and say, hey, I don't know where this is going and I'm struggling. Would that be like practical application of that?
Yes, and maybe to also try and quantify a little bit more, you can measure it in terms of, am I still being functional in this specific area?
Yeah.
So, for example, if the anxiety, infiltrates in, let's say you started working online, but you're feeling so anxious that you start, refraining from taking calls or taking Zoom calls and all of that. So we can see that the intensity of the anxiety makes your work functionality deteriorate quite significantly. So intensity, frequency, and how that influences your functionality, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just bearing in mind, because we're talking quite general, functionality today looks very different to what it looked like, a month and a half ago. Yeah. So, approach this, what we're saying, approach it with facts and what's going on at the moment. Just wanted to say that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess they say when you study psychology or medicine, then there comes a time when you start diagnosing yourself with everything that you seeing around you, because you're like, yeah, I feel a bit like that. I see this in me, but just to
Yeah.
be careful not to overanalyze this, to kind of make sure that, is this inhibiting my functioning? Is it having a very negative effect on my marriage or on friendships or whatever? And then start to maybe diarize some of the unique
Yes.
aspects of it and elements of it. So
Yes. Yes. Mm.
moving from there, maybe a couple of behavioral pitfalls to avoid.
Mm.
What should we be careful of going to, of engaging when we try to deal with this? When we try to
Yeah.
deal with a specific thing, what are some things that we should be wary of?
Yeah. 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 I think this is maybe an honesty point where each one of us need to just take stock on maybe some of the old habits that we used to do when we were more dysfunctional. I'm definitely uh, challenged with something like procrastination. I had these wonderful stuff that I was going to do during this lockdown period. Uncle Cyril gave us enough time to prepare for at least a 21-day lockdown, and I had this whiteboard actually out, something I'd never do. And yeah, I just procrastinated all the more. So from a behavioral point of view, I think behavior is also a very nice tool, because we can see behavior, we can observe behavior. Emotions are even a little bit more subtle. Okay,
Yeah.
something we feel in here, but behavior is something that we can see, something that we can keep track of. So, be honest with yourself in terms of what are my old habits that actually set me on a more destructive path. And we need to be honest about these behavioral patterns, pitfalls. I think you mentioned the word pitfalls, but it is exactly what it is. So old habits. Am I ignoring some people? Am I ignoring some groups, some participations in groups? Things where I used to participate in. Am I refraining more from that? I know we need to social distance, but it's not social isolation. It's valid to say that we need to adjust to the new ways of communicating. But to what extent am I really socially isolating myself? I think we need to call out on stuff that we do in secret as well. Things like pornography is a much bigger problem out there that I think is really given, I don't want to say given credit to, but highlighted. And during this time, we might be more on social media. Your eyes might catch something; it might trigger something in your brain, and there's no shame if that thing triggers. I mean, it happens automatically. But what do you do after that? And how much do you follow, or do you pursue that trigger and that behavior? So things like social isolation is what comes to mind. Pornography, what comes to mind. I know the more effective avoidance strategies, such as substances, is less accessible at the moment. But alcohol is a great scapegoat. I mean, I'm really not questioning the effectiveness of alcohol, because it takes you away from this maybe uncomfortable situation you're in. But is that actually an old habit that that you need to be careful of? So, behavior is very overt, if that's the right word. It's something that you can see. But it is challenging to get into that point where you're having that self-dialogue when you're talking to yourself and saying, okay, I'm actually seeing that I'm regressing in terms of those old habits.
Yeah, because I guess you use those old habits often to find comfort in a time such as this, and as much as it is a sign, it's also just a danger. So we shouldn't think, well, I'm just gonna drink a glass of wine every night. I usually drank a glass of wine once a week, but now I'm drinking it every night. Just we should avoid things like that could make us slip up, and maybe lose traction on life that we had before this. So to avoid such.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but we mentioned the word self-awareness at the beginning, and I think it's so important that we slip into old habits, feeling an emotion in terms of intensity more and more. It happens so quickly. Okay, so it's not about only realizing when it's happening. It's actually, especially in this time, asking yourself the specific questions, stuff that we mentioned earlier, but asking yourself, are there any behavior, are there any emotions? Call it on its name, and you'll be surprised, how little you were aware. Maybe I'm speaking for myself here as well. Not maybe, definitely. But the whole self-awareness thing, it's actually a conscious conversation that you need to have with yourself.
Yeah, the other day I realized when I was not in such a good space during the lockdown, and I thought, oh, this lockdown is really getting to me. And I realized in that moment is as if God spoke to me in that moment, and he said, no, it's not the lockdown getting to you. It's just you getting to yourself. You really have to deal with you. So that helped me a lot.
Most difficult person to deal with, definitely.
Yeah, just that internal locus of control, and saying, I'm gonna take ownership of this. I'm not gonna blame it on the lockdown or on Cyril Ramaphosa. We've told Daniel, my boy, that we can't go to the beach because Cyril Ramaphosa said so. So now for everything we want to do and we can't do, then he asked whether Cyril Ramaphosa said that we are allowed to do it, or Cyril is not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with nothing, but I just thought to I think humor is a great way of dealing with these things.
I see is one of your key points, and I agree totally.
Yeah, I've been regressing into old habits of looking at comedians and trying to see how much I can laugh at them. It helps me a lot. But anyway, so tools that can assist. Our last question for today. What tools would you want to, could you give us, could you say, well, this is a way of thinking, orientating yourself, or maybe specific behavioral things that could be helpful for us?
Yeah, I think, this is also what helps for some people doesn't help for others. And I think, there's much more than we are going to discuss out there. But I think for me personally, what I feel, I want to highlight for the sake of this conversation is basically three areas. So the one is that self-awareness concept we talked about earlier. So taking time to ask yourself and to spend time with yourself, specifically around, where am I at the moment? What am I feeling at the moment? Just that self-reflection. Okay, not trying to develop narcissism here, but it's important that that you do take that time out and ask yourself, okay, where am I at specifically in relation to the lockdown? Okay, so self-reflection, and obviously how you can do that is that journaling, specifically identifying the emotions. There's lots of literature on different kinds of emotions, and we'll be surprised how many words there are to describe certain emotions. But to really be descriptive on how you're feeling. So that self-awareness, journaling, taking stock, just where you are specifically. Then, we call it now our defenses, and I've mentioned, sometimes just to get away from that place or space of anxiety or panic. Sometimes we need to distract our minds with that. Now, I'm not a big fan of complete avoidance, but temporarily getting yourself away from that situation. You might calm down a bit, even if God is challenging you with something. Sometimes it's very overwhelming, and we have this rigid belief that I need to sort this out right now. Now, if God says now, it's now. But in terms of just settling down and hearing voices clearly, because we become anxious, we become overwhelmed, and then we're missing the point completely.
Yeah.
So sometimes we need our defenses. Sometimes we need to go watch 7-Eleven quickly, or just take that break, or just take your mind to something else, read a book, or go play with the dogs. Those defenses, but make sure you come back to what is needed. So, one, self-awareness is important, the time you spend with yourself. 2, sometimes we need our defenses. We need to avoid that situation there. Keep yourself busy with something else, and a good balance between the two. And then what I also find is we all, I think, experience some sort of depression. I'm not speaking clinically depressed, but we feel heavy in this time. And that feeling of feeling depressed, feeling heavy, sometimes makes us very self-focused. So we're only aware of how I'm feeling at the moment. And the one thing that I know is very effective with that, we talked about it earlier, when you go on a mission, the focus is always outward. So if you can do something to reach out to someone else, I'm not saying going on a mission, that's not allowed at the moment, okay, physical mission, sorry. But, to reach out to someone, there's various ways that you can reach out to someone, but just to get that focus away from what's happening here, now, in my house, getting the focus out there. So basically the balance between those 3 aspects, I feel, is quite important. And we know that it's especially in a time when you are feeling down, it's sometimes difficult to be honest about that and to reach out to someone. But we need to ask, we need to seek help. Obviously, search for that natural resource within you, but you need to let someone know. Okay, so even if you don't want to talk to someone, send that WhatsApp to a person that you know is going to receive that message well, so that help can come.
I really like that. So what we're saying is, take time. If I'm summarizing, take time to spend with yourself intentionally, not just letting your mind wander and going into arguments and negative spirals, but be intentional, like journal about what's happening, spending time on that. Then also taking breaks from yourself, almost taking breaks from yourself, engaging with whatever is rough, to be intentional about breaking away from that, and then be intentional of completely leaving your own space and reaching out to someone else, caring somewhere else. And then the last one you said is, like, don't not reach out, even if it's even if it's just a friend, even if it's just someone that you really trust. It doesn't have to be clinically or professionally reaching out, but just reach out. I want to encourage you guys to continue to reach out to us in this time. like I said, me and Runel, we're available to come for care and counseling. We've got permits for that, so please contact us for that specifically. And Jan, yeah, I want to say thank you so much. Appreciate this a lot.
Lekker.
It's really lucky to work with you, and I hope that this could really bless some of our listeners.
Thank
So
you.
awesome stuff.
Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks, everybody. Good night.